Welcome to an episode of Community Off the Cuff. I'm Nick Rankin. Today I'm sitting down with one of my top 5 favorite people that I've ever met working in Norwich, Erin Haggan. She's an LCSW and she runs Norwich Youth and Family Services. Stick around.
2836.
Well, really, I've been trying to have you on for 6 months.
Yeah.
But you have a new baby.
I do.
So that's obviously taken up some amount of your time, and we haven't really been able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a lot.
Yeah. So really what we wanted to have you on to talk about was healthy outlets, because you run youth and family services, and we'll go straight to the social work side of things. What makes something an outlet for people?
I think anything that makes you feel better, and there's healthy outlets and there's unhealthy outlets, but like an outlet would be a way to escape whatever maybe feeling or emotion that you're going through that you can't manage at that time. So you need to take a step out and do something to help release those feelings. And there's people that do that in really healthy ways, like exercise, meditation, working out, things like that. And then there's people that do them in unhealthy ways, mainly because they probably haven't learned or practiced the other things, but substance use, anger, any kind of self-destructive behavior, really.
Arguing with people.
Yeah, getting defensive, confrontational, things like that, yeah. So a lot of what we do, and a lot of people, kids and families that we work with, are the ones that haven't necessarily ever been taught.
Do you think that's something that people learn automatically through things like organized youth sports or extracurriculars and stuff like that? Is that where that's learned, and then later you discover that, this is a source of relief?
I think so. I mean, I think with sports and things, you can learn about discipline, and then that being a healthy outlet. And that's great. I think if that's the only place, though, that is where you can still run into trouble, because you can't always run onto the football field and play a game of football if you're having a stressful day, or, sometimes being too disciplined could keep you from engaging in something, or could make you have like really super high expectations of yourself. And when you don't meet them, then, can snowball into something negative. So I think it's totally multifaceted. So right at home is important. What I think happens, though, a lot of times is parents haven't learned the skills to pass them on to their kids, or school, they do now more so teach social emotional learning, how to deal with your feelings, how to manage them. And that's what we try to do, is to go into schools and help the staff do that, because they're obviously super busy trying to teach them curriculum, and, they have to meet certain standards with academics. So we try to service the schools by saying, like, hey, here, we're a free service. We can bring in people and help teach these skills. And we've always done programming more like middle school and high school focused, but now we're trying to get, in the past couple of years, into the elementary schools, because that's really, sometimes at middle school, you've already developed these unhealthy strategies that seem to work for you, even though everybody around you sees that they don't. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So point of clarification, you said sports can develop it. You don't always have access to a football field to run onto a football field, that kind of thing. But when I say extracurriculars, I want to include, like, we have a choral club, maybe you like to sing, or arts, or whatever it is. Do you think that there should be something separate and apart for that that's not activity based, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. I think anything that somebody likes to do, so if somebody likes to draw and be creative, and they have an opportunity to practice that as much as possible, and to practice it maybe outside of the privacy of their own home, and interact with other people who I think all of those things, and you meet other people, you build a support network, you meet more maybe adults that can be mentors. So yeah, all that stuff is really positive.
Did you have that when you were young? And when did you, first of all, what is yours?
My outlet?
Yeah. what's your outlet?
I do a lot of journaling and meditation, which
Yep.
sounds like kind of hokey to a lot of people, and it did to me for a long time, but I really find it helpful. My mind races a lot, so it does help to get it out. But just because I'm a social worker doesn't mean it's the first thing I go to. So I think everybody naturally has healthy and unhealthy. I do like to exercise and walk and things like that, which is really hard when you have a newborn baby who also has medical issues, and getting out and doing that. And I see the impact on that. So, and then, I like to eat, I mean, and
Sure.
that's just like a natural, easy place to go to kind of escape. So I think that's the one thing I like to focus on, is like normalizing that stuff, because sometimes people, and I'll do it too, like, oh, I did an unhealthy outlet and then I beat myself up, and then I continue to do unhealthy things, instead of like saying like, oh, like I'm a human, I did an unhealthy thing, everyone does that, and now I'm gonna like be okay with that and do the healthy thing.
Sure.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, I feel like that spiral of, I feel bad for doing the unhealthy thing, means now I need to escape from the bad feelings that I caused by doing the unhealthy thing, so I'll do more unhealthy things.
Yeah.
And create more
So
bad
think
feelings.
about if you're a kid with a like still undeveloped brain, which is of no fault of their own, right? It's just
Right.
the truth of the matter, and they're getting in trouble in school, and people are like always telling them like, you're not making good choices, you're always getting in trouble, what's wrong with you, why are you doing that? They don't maybe know why they're doing it, and then they feel like, well, I'm like not good enough because I'm not doing good, and so now I'm just gonna like disengage in school because I'm not doing good there. And so it can really snowball if we don't try to focus on strengths, and then instead of saying like, tell me why you did that and don't do it, like we have to tell them what to do instead.
Yeah, that's one of the better pieces of parenting type advice that I've picked up along the way, is it's not good enough to say don't.
Yeah.
Right? And not that you shouldn't say don't. It's now give them something to do, which I learned it well before I had kids, but I was like, oh yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Wait,
Yeah.
what are they going to think of their own thing to do?
Yeah,
No,
exactly,
they're tiny
exactly.
little, they don't.
The first time I ever like thought of that or heard it was someone had been teaching about like for little kids, like in redirecting them, and they'd say, don't tell a kid to walk. Like you say to a kid, don't run, but if you say, hey, I need you to walk, or so, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
then they can, like, I don't know.
Right.
It processes better. But to get back to the question about outlets for me, so that's a big part of why I work in this field. Because without positive outlets or positive mentors in my life growing up, I don't know that I would be where I am today. And I'll just like to go back. It wasn't an easy life growing up. And, my parent, she did the best she could with what she had. And she was a wonderful woman, really beloved by many people actually in the community. And she knew what she knew. And so she could only pass on what she could. And as a kid, I went through a lot of loss. My dad died, my sister died. And, she didn't know how to handle that. So to be able to teach me how to handle
Sure.
it, and so I didn't handle it, but I had people that I could kind of talk to, that when I got to the age that I was able or ready to talk about it, I actually tapped into those resources. And so full circle, when I was 16, my mom didn't know how to help me because that's when my sister died. And so someone at the school told her about Norwich Youth and Family Services and how they offer free counseling, which we
Yep.
still do. And so I went to Norwich Youth and Family Services for counseling with Kay Ibers, who later became the director of Youth and Family Services. And about 5-6 years later, I decided to go to a survivors of suicide group, because that was how my sister died.
Yeah.
And she was the group facilitator through a contract through Norwich
Sure.
Youth and Family Services. And then a few years later, I graduated from college, and she gave me my first contracted position as a MSW doing a group in a school. So then I went to Norwich Youth and Family Services in the position that she held when she was my counselor.
Yeah.
And now I'm the director of the agency.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually, it's perfect, right? It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
perfect little
Yeah.
story that goes full circle.
Yeah.
So you guys still offer free counseling, which is amazing because I think you counsel me once every
At least quarter.
And I like to feel like that's mutual counseling.
I
But
believe so.
that's just not, I'm
Yeah.
a professional. I don't have the accolades to do it.
You
But,
don't. It's more about authenticity, and you learn a lot in school, and it is helpful, but it's more about interaction and communication and listening, which you do well.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you so
full
much.
of compliments today.
That's a really good compliment, actually. Like calling somebody a good listener.
Yeah.
That is a legitimate compliment. That reminds me of something that I was watching yesterday that said the good basis of a therapeutic relationship is that both people just want things to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And virtually every relationship you have is therapeutic. And if it's not, then it's not even a relationship.
Right.
So.
Or it could be a toxic relationship.
Sure. But they said you have something, kind of separate and apart from a real relationship at that point.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah, even with people that are physically close to you that you spend a lot of time with or that you have some sort of formal relationship to.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, well, maybe not get rid of it. You have acquaintances. It doesn't need to be that.
But you do set boundaries.
Right.
Set boundaries with it.
Yeah. I think that was probably the point of what they were saying. It was a clip
Yeah.
more about active listening.
We
type
could
stuff
talk
than
about
anything.
your all or nothing thinking in our next session.
What all or nothing thinking?
Well, when you said get rid of it, so unconsciously you're saying like it'd be easier for me to just end the relationship than to set a boundary.
Oh, I won't. You know what? My wife's not going to watch this, but I'm going to. I want to talk about her for a second.
Okay.
No, and because we talk about this all the time, and she has this thing that she does that I've never seen. I don't know anyone else that does this. She will break up with a friend when a friendship is over. And I think it's really interesting because I've never seen anyone else do that. I've seen, friendships kind of fade. They go away. They, whatever, reignite. But she definitively, if she's done, she wants a breakup.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
called detaching with love.
Really?
Yeah. So it's by actually communicating the boundary. Is that what you're saying? Like she'll have a conversation with them and say like this, I'm ending this friendship because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah, it's not an anger thing. It's just.
Yeah, that's detaching with love. It's like a whole thing around codependency, and it's a skill that you learn. Or, sometimes people learn it naturally, right? Through their connections with adults as they're growing up or role models. But it's a very healthy way to say, this isn't working for me anymore, so I'm going to move on. And I wish you the best of luck. And you don't move forward with resentment that then impacts your future relationship.
I think
Is she looking for a job?
No,
Bring her into.
She would be fantastic in that line of work, but no, she stays at home with the kids, and we kind of we're doing this thing where it's half homeschool, so we're part of a group, and some of them are former teachers, and it's so 3 days a week we're doing that, and then 2 at preschool, and that takes up a lot of our time.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
she would be fantastic in that line of work. She's got a few degrees too.
Yeah.
She just, we really wanted to, I don't know, have her raising the kids, have them always with family as opposed to go the daycare route, which
it's fine for people that have to do
it
that.
works too. And it's tough to make up for the socialization aspect sometimes. So that's why the groups and the and different stuff
and
like that.
that's where
to be
your
intentional.
kids will learn additional ways. Like they'll learn what they learn from you guys,
right?
And then they'll be able to practice those skills in the groups and learn maybe some more.
What other nifty skills what is it? Loving detachment? Is that
detaching with love?
Detaching with love.
Yeah.
What?
Oh boy.
Give me some more because I've never seen that before. I am. Yeah. Let's quiz LCSW quiz.
Oh, well, you got to give me a topic. I can't just pull something out of the air. Give me a scenario or a certain something.
Why do people ghost people?
Oh, well, that's
because nobody wants to be ghosted.
Because they don't want to have a confrontation because they don't know how to detach with love. So it's easier to just disappear and not address it than to have a uncomfortable conversation. So, say me and you had a disagreement, or recently I had an incident with one of your fellow officers. Great guy. respect him. He made a very offhand comment, didn't mean any harm by it.
Sure.
So I said, I didn't like that you made that comment. And he said, okay, I'm sorry. And we were like, cool. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but if I just said, oh, I can't believe he said that, what a jerk, like, I'm never talking to him again. That's because I don't want to be uncomfortable to say, I don't like that you made that comment. Yeah, you know, and the why it can be uncomfortable is because in my past relationships, and this is true for everybody, maybe I did speak up for myself and I got a negative response. Like,
Right.
well, who are you? Like, why should I don't need to please you, or that's your problem. You're too sensitive. You know, so for many years I wouldn't have said that. But now
Right.
it's like, well, you know, I got to speak my truth even though it's uncomfortable. And part of the reason I learned to do that was through a work training that we did on like why it's important to have uncomfortable conversations and how they build relationships. So
Yeah.
I actually like him better now.
It's funny that you bring that up because so I have to teach this class later on today that I've been working on. And part of it is high resolution problem solving, right? Mm-hmm. And what you did there by saying, I don't like that you made that comment, is you took it down to the exact behavior, right? Very clear cut as to the thing that you don't like, addressed only that without letting that spread or conflate to the rest of somebody's personality or other things, right?
Yeah.
Going to low resolution solutions. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's...
And I didn't overgeneralize that because, you know, and I think that becomes an issue in many different scenarios is somebody does one behavior, makes one choice, and it's easy to overgeneralize and make an assumption about that person's entire personality.
Halo effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's not fair. If I were judged on some of the choices that I made, I would, you know, not have my job, you know,
Sure.
or just, you know, not have as many people close to me, you know, so it's really, you know, about focusing on the behavior and not the person.
Yeah.
Whole person. That's a term.
Whole person.
Yeah, like you went in like systems theory and stuff. You would look at like the whole person, like all the multifacets of their personality, so that you're not just judging them on one specific thing. And then you look at all the systems around them that might impact their behavior, good or bad. So
Okay.
a system would be like if you're looking at a kid, like school, family, extracurricular activities, and
Yep.
then you would break it down even further, like
Peer groups.
all their peer groups,
Sure,
all
yeah.
their, and then you'd look at all their, like mom, dad, well, and then there's like something called an eco map, and you draw lines to those things based on whether they're like specific, like a line like that might be that they're close, like that's a healthy connection. And then you might do a line and then like dashes down, it might mean like disconnected
Strained
or strained. Yeah. And then you kind of use that as a visual to help enhance the good relationships and maybe help them learn some skills on how to manage any emotions that are going on with the...
That seems like something people could do on their own and might be beneficial for adults.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Like to
beneficial
sit down
for anyone.
and really categorize and go, hey, what's the nature of this relationship that I have with either this other person or this entity, like in the case of, you know, a job or a school or,
Yeah.
you know, how that I could see why that would be really, really useful.
And it's useful for other people. Like if I'm sitting down with you or a kid and I do that eco map with them,
Mm-hmm.
and then they can like visually see what situations are causing them more stress and what things help them. Because if you're just going your day-to-day life, it's so easy for us to compartmentalize things and not recognize like, oh, this relationship is actually causing me a lot of low self-esteem. But you don't...
And if you've got the negative relationship that's kind of stuck in your life, and I think everybody has them, you know, that people have people in their life. It's just, you know, it's a negative association. You don't want to spend any time with or about that when you're not dealing with it, right? So you kind of repeatedly keep encountering this negative thing, and you're like, God, I don't really like that. But if you spent the time outside of that to go, all right, what looks good here, what looks bad here, and how am I going to address these negative ones?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I could see.
sometimes people don't even know that they're negative. That's the other thing. Like if if you're looking at a situation where you've grown up in an environment where there's a lot of trauma and neglect and, maybe verbal or emotional abuse, and then you have a relationship with someone when you're older in a, partnership, or you might not recognize that as being unhealthy because it's all you've ever known.
Right.
Silly example about like how you're just so isolated into your household growing up and you don't know that there's other ways to handle things. When I was growing up, we always ate in front of the TV, like TV stands, a lot of TV dinners, whatever, and that was like, we watched TV and like, that was just what we did. And when I was in high school and I started like going to eat at friends' house and stuff, and they like sat at a table and interacted with each other, so uncomfortable. Right. I'd be like, what are we going to talk about? Like, what's going to happen? And even still to this day, I get a level of comfort when I can just like go take my food in the living room and eat. Like if I've had a rough day or something like that. And my husband is the complete opposite. He grew up, they sat at the table every night. His mom had dinner, 4 kids. She worked full time. She had dinner on, which is amazing because I have 1 kid and I haven't made dinner in 6 months pretty much. Right. But, so he like hates when I go and sit in the living room to eat, and he like craves this like interaction at the table, and it makes me still uncomfortable to this day. So it's just, if you don't know it. So if you're talking about like, I never knew that was like a healthy thing to do, to actually like interact with people at the dinner table and like share your day, because after we do it, I'm always like, oh, that was nice.
That's a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, I just talked to my husband. That was nice. But yeah. So, and that's a very like.
Is that considered a system?
Yeah.
How you coordinate, meals. How you coordinate meals, does that be considered a system?
I think that would be like traditions, like norms in your house. Yeah. Right. That could be definitely a system.
That's funny because there's another like interesting difference. Here I am talking about my wife on the podcast. This is like
me too. Yeah,
whatever. It's nothing scandalous, but I'm trying to put her on blast like that. But one of the major differences in our families is her family always bonds over a meal. Yeah, mealtime, and for us, meals were always fast. Food was something in the way. It's like, oh well, we have to take in food, so we're going to do that. And we still sat down at a table for dinner and stuff like that. But the rest of, that was the only meal we sat down at a table for. Everything else was like an in-between, grab your food and let's do what we're doing. We bonded over labor, right? Like manual labor is what we would bond over. Yeah. And that's a comfortable space to spend, like mucking stalls in my family's house was like a comfortable space to be in. Oh, we're going to go move the hay from here to there, fill the water buckets, whatever it was. So it is weird to go to her family's house, and it is a sit-down dinner that will hit all of not necessarily like courses, although they do kind of do courses.
Right, yeah. But is it a long, like hours-long process?
It will happen at the same time every night, reliably, 5 o'clock, and it will last 1 hour.
At your house?
No.
Oh, there. Oh, okay.
At theirs, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And to me, it's strange. Like, I don't know how to be.
Yeah.
Because we're going to say, and her mom serves the food by plate. Whereas like when we were kids, it was, hey, things are made on the stove, go make your plate, come sit down, and it just stuff.
Yeah, so those are norms. And so those norms like affect you on a day, like when you go over there. And I'm not going to assume I know how you feel when you go there, but I know, like lovely, I was saying, like at first I would have anxiety because it's not what I used to. Like, come on, we got to finish and eat, and so we can go do the labor, right, or the get things done, but then you do it, and you're like, oh, that was actually kind of nice,
Yeah, it's always nice, and everybody's just kind of locked into one another and engaged, and then we try to replicate things like that with our kids, but they're 4 and 2, so you know how that probably looks.
It's an important point when you're interacting with kids and families in the community, because not everybody is going to value the same things, and I think that's a thing we all run into, is that like a big thing I've learned in this career is not every family values education, right? So we're here with this, like, and schools are motivated, like, we got to get you to graduate. If you don't graduate, you're not going to have opportunities, and you're not going to get to go to college. Well, that's not what everybody wants to do, and that doesn't have to be what they want to do. There's very successful people that did not finish high school, and I'm not advocating for kids to drop out of high school, but you have to look at what does this person value and how do we
help them achieve what they value.
How do we nurture that instead of trying to put what we think is important on them. And I'll have to, as a parent now, I mean, she's 6 months old, but I have to remember that, like, I can't get her to live and choose the things that I lived and chose, or the things I wished I did, right? Like my niece, I'm always trying to get her to go to college in Boston because I wish I went to college in Boston. She might not want to go to college there.
Right.
And she's 14, so she's got some time. But
yeah,
it's just weird how we...
Well, I think the values question is always real interesting because you see people's values in such conflict right now. And a couple things have come up in the last few months, and I started just thinking of them differently. Like nothing happened. It's just so I teach a couple classes, like I told you, and one of them is about police and the public. And one of the things that when we kind of examined everything that was going on last year is people have these shared values, social norms, and mores normally within a community, right? Normally with the people that are around you, right? This is what our city elevates. This is what people around us think is good and we're encouraged to do. And now with the digital boom, those values, norms, and mores exist in some digital community that's not there.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're somewhere, but they're not here local. So then when you go outside, you have all these strange value conflicts that never really existed before.
Yeah.
And the other place it had come up was talking about how we enforce the law, right? And one of the things that we're starting to state more explicitly and think of in policing is like, well, what does your community value, right? Because before that conversation never came up. It was, what's the law, and go apply the law objectively and all those things. But now it's like, well, does your community value that law?
Right.
Yes, no, maybe. Like, do a lot of people not think this law is a big deal, but it's very important to your community?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And so it's, the values game keeps coming up again and again and again.
Yeah, well, and that's why you'll see people engaging in something that's unlawful, but then you try to, I don't know if that's the right word, but then you try to address it with them and they're like, everybody's doing that. Like, in a way, and so it does make it hard to enforce it because it's like, well, just because everyone's doing it, it's not okay, but that's exactly the message it sends, is that everybody's doing it and so it's okay. And with the digital world thing is that all I could think of when you were talking about is then imagine leaving that digital world to come into school or work and the anxiety, so when you see a lot of anxiety in kids, they're very active on video games or social media, and that's where they've learned how to interact, and then they go out into the real world and they don't know how to. They don't know how to have a face-to-face conversation. And I always think about, like, I don't like when my phone rings, right? Like, just text me. You know what I mean? Like, and like I see my phone ring and I get like this, like, oh my God, I got to talk to this person. But then you talk to them and it's fine. But that's because I existed before texting. So I do know how to do it. I mean, I just prefer. But so imagine like these adolescents who have only really grown up with this world and getting phones like 5, 6, whatever. I mean, some not till later, but still and then you add in COVID where that became the norm and kids are on classrooms, but they're be able to chat, all their answers are in chat. We ran some groups on Zoom during COVID, and even some individual therapy sessions that I had that were on Zoom that like fully specific kids only participated via chat. Now they would participate and they'd share their emotions and their feelings, and we built a relationship and a rapport, and you can actually get somewhere with that. Yeah. But that can't be how they navigate the world for the rest of their life, and so you got to take what you can, get what you can from them and pull from but what an interesting, the whole point of a group really and of therapy is to like interact and talk, and especially in a group to kind of build those relationships, and they still were built, but it's just a whole different like way. And I always wondered, like, if we now brought those kids face to face, right, what would happen? Yeah. They'd probably they'd be texting each other from the corner. Chair and put their head down and hope nothing's said. Yeah, but you can't, like, I can't blame, it can't be held to like some standard that they haven't learn
Of course
to navigate.
they feel that way.
Yeah.
Of course they do.
Yep.
Yeah. It'd be inevitable.
Yeah. So the challenge is like, how do you draw them back out, and then teaching those skills.
Yeah, that's been something that's been like a primary concern of ours for a while now, is how do I get people to go talk to other people face to face, and how do I get people to set down the phone?
I remember you were going to do that challenge, like where like take photos with people in your community, but the issue was like, A, you need your phone probably for the photos, and B, how are you going to share them without your phone? And we were going to do like disposables.
Yeah, we're talking about doing disposables, and then how are we going to retrieve them? Who's going to develop them? Are they just going to disappear and get stolen?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking about it in preparation for this episode. I don't know why, maybe just because of the healthy outlets thing, but I think it'd be fun to do like a community digital detox. Like, that's a thing. Dopamine fasting's a thing. Digital detoxes are a thing. And I think it'd be fun if we could get a group of people to just like.
So other communities, and there's actually a national, and it's called something specific, basically, that's like, whatever, electronic free weekend or whatever. And we did try to promote it and do something, but this is the truth, and this is why a lot of people don't access our services, is we're very small, and so to get the word out is difficult. And so what's really been amazing in the past 2 years since I've been back in this role is the community, the group connections, right? So instead of us doing unplugged weekend, one weekend, and it's the same weekend as National Drug Take Back Day, and the same weekend as another group is having a festival downtown. And so instead, I feel like we've been really getting good at this, is like organizations like mine and Rose City United and Bully Busters, all the rec department saying, hey, let's all do an event together in the same spot. And a little plug for the trunk or treat that's coming up on October 22nd. Rose City United wanted to do a pumpkin carving contest. Rec department is hosting a trunk or treat. Like, let's do it together, attract more people. And so for like an unplugged thing, there's communities that have done that super successfully, and it just takes everybody getting involved, businesses included. So I'll give Old Lime a shout out. Like, they got a bunch of their businesses to participate. Like, if you came in with your family, you got a certain, like a free ice cream, or, and really getting businesses involved. So it motivates families to get off their phones and go out into the community. Like, we did like a scavenger hunt. Some people did participate, but really people just who are following our Facebook, and that's, I mean, we have like 1,000 followers, but there's,
how many things are there following 1,000 things?
Right. Like, and there's, how many really people are there in ours? Like 40,000?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
almost 50, I think now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. I'm super happy for the, over 1,000 followers, but, that's a lot of people we're not reaching. And
that'd be good. I didn't even think about it if we hit the local businesses just through Angela, right?
Yeah.
Say, hey, can we get this out to the
and
businesses?
And I think it's in April is the national one. So I think always plugging into that on a national level helps, because there's, all kinds of like ideas that you can get. And then we did it, I think it ran into like Earth Day weekend or something, and tried to do a combo with that. So
have you ever done it for yourself?
I have tried.
I'm just going to fast off.
I have tried. Yeah. It's hard. Like, I'll delete Facebook and Instagram, and but it's hard. I mean, and have you ever tried to like put your phone, or like you leave home without your phone on accident? How many times like you go to reach for it? That's
creepy. Yeah, because I don't wear a watch anymore. It's like that. It's my clock. It's
it's like it's really everything. Weasels its way into your life. I have Apple Pay on there. Mind blown. Didn't know how easy that was. You don't even have to take anything out. But so. Without your phone, I'm lost. But then 4 hours later or whatever, when I haven't had it and I finally have stopped that reaching, it's like, oh, this is really nice. I'm going to practice this more often. And then I get home and I'm like, how many messages do I have? And then you just fall right back into it.
Yeah. big things that I found that helped me was I had an Apple Watch for a while, and for good reason. It was like, I don't want to drag my phone out with me out onto scenes, but people still need to be able to get a hold of me. And that's the annoying part. I need, when I'm done with police work, no one will ever need to get a hold of me ever again. And that's my dream. Like, I'm happy to hear from people, but I don't
It won't be an emergency if you can't get back to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, so I got rid of the Apple Watch because it would just touch you every 5 seconds. Even when you're off, like relaxing, the idea in my head was, oh, well, now I can leave my phone away from me and I don't have to think about that. But instead, every 5 seconds, it's like, hey.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then I started using the do not disturb auto responses. And I wish they'd like make a robust auto response system.
Yeah.
Because right now it's like driving mode.
Yeah.
You have to put it in, which means like I can't check the time or whatever. No big deal. But it's like, hey, I'm just unavailable. And that's what I put as my, it's like, I'm doing family stuff. I'm just unavailable.
Yeah. Interesting point that you make there though, too, because one time I had wanted to do that. And, I was telling this mentor of mine who kind of helps me, get in line with these healthier things. And she said, why do you think you owe it to people to have a message that tells them why you're not available? And it's like, oh yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, right. It's just interesting that that's the world like that we live in, that it's like, right. Oh, I can't just shut my phone off without letting people know right. why they're not going to be able to reach me. And it's like, this pops in my head. Like, I remember when my car ran out of gas and I had to walk 3 miles to go to like a payphone, right. Like nobody was getting a hold of me that day, or it's crazy. So this makes me think of the Like film. I don't know if you know about this or we've talked about it maybe. And it's kind of like The Social Dilemma on Netflix.
Awesome.
But this company does films a lot on social issues. It's called Indie Flicks, and right now we have access to the Upstanders one, which is about bullying and it's National Bullying Anti-Bullying Month. So, but the film Like, it's like very what you were saying. It's like the apps and all of that are made to get you to want to check and get you right. like when you're saying like that like, hey, don't forget about us. Like, don't forget about me. I know you're trying to like.
Well, it's a weird attention economy, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, your attention gets to look at advertisements.
What's
that
also
pay money
crazy is
get,
when we get off this and we go to check our Facebook and something we talked about is going to be an ad on our phone.
Oh, that's so creepy. Yeah. Weirdest thing that you've ever had in a conversation that popped up in your phone afterwards?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, that's fine.
What about you?
Bronies.
What's a brony?
A guy that likes to dress up as a My Little Pony. Oh, I have no idea why it came up in the conversation, but then open your phone afterwards and it's like, really?
Oh,
like
wow.
there's My Little Pony full-sized man suits that you're advertising to me?
Amazing.
And you go...
Yeah. You're testing my memory a lot today, and my bandwidth is minimized, and I think anyone with a 6-month-old child couldn't identify with that.
Yeah, I think anybody understands that at all.
And
luckily, your bandwidth is usually quite wide, so you're coming across as very...
wide bandwidth.
No, you're coming across as with it.
Good.
You seem like locked on and
okay, good. Are we going to cut that part?
Do you want us to? No. We can. We don't have to.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter.
See, that's why people should stick around till the end, because sometimes at the end we do fun stuff.
Yeah.
Did you see the end of the John Perry one?
No.
Oh, well, there you go. You should watch the end of the John Perry one, because things get fun.
Oh, okay. I will.
Yeah.
I will. All right.
But
bronies. I'm just saying it again so my phone picks up on it so I can see the
so it'll come up later.
Yeah.
Well, it'll also probably talk about phone microphones, listening devices or whatever on you.
Yeah.
I've been trying to stay away from all that social media stuff unless it's for work.
Yeah.
Right? Which now that's required of work too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a group chat between us, Bully Busters, whoever else on Facebook to organize some event. And then like I do the real estate thing on the side, and there's one that like you're kind of required to check it.
Right.
Yeah. It's part of the business. And,
well, every time I've deleted my Facebook, that's part of it, is like sharing flyers and things, which is actually like very easy to do just on my phone when I can't get to a desktop, or when I'm scrolling my Facebook and I see, Rose City United post a flyer and I can just boop, 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 and so I think they're kind of excuses we make up, and we hold ourselves to the standard of doing it. And think about, I keep going back to like the kids, like brains aren't fully developed, and ours, supposedly are,
right?
And we
destroying them
and
daily,
we struggle with it. So it's like, and so I did this social media training one time at NFA for the staff.
Yeah.
And when I opened, I said, all right, you guys, I'm going to pass around this basket, and I'm asking you to put your cell phones in the basket for the entirety of the training. And I was kidding, and I did not really mean it, but it was really to I'm just realized I'm like yelling. But it was just to prove the point, right? Yeah. It's like, you're asking these kids, our whole lives are on our phones. Mm-hmm. Their whole lives and their self-worth is attached to their phones.
That's the scary part.
And their relationships. And we're asking them to stay off them for an hour-long class period when you aren't even willing to do it for an hour-long training. Right. So, I think that's what...
I should have Deb on to talk about that and the whole cyberbullying end of things, because I think I don't have enough of a frame of reference for it, just because, Facebook came out when we were adults. Mm-hmm. Or, for me, it was when I was in college. And so to me, that's not real.
Yeah.
Right? I go, oh, that's just this thing.
Yeah.
And, it's not real. It's to keep track of friends that I don't talk to as much, and what they're doing and how everybody is. And that was my initial response to it. The first time I heard somebody being like, oh, my so-and-so's getting bullied on Facebook, I was like, well, let me talk to him. I was like, hey, great news. This isn't real. You could totally delete it. You don't need it.
Right, but that's not something they're going to do.
It's not something they're going to do, and they haven't really seen time without it. I think the next generation coming up, parents are now wise to that, and it's like, you're not getting on social media to begin with, but it's also the struggle of how do you keep your kid technologically relevant, and so they can understand their peers and have frame of reference, but also responsible. How do you even strike that balance?
Well, I'm going to argue your point that you just said, because you said parents are becoming aware of it, but really, if you think about it, soon enough, the parents are going to be these kids who are their whole world's in social media, and some already, really, because if you look, 5-10 years, really, this has been going on. It seems like not as long, but it really has. And, and I think I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but there's so many other apps that kids are on that are just zones for this, and Snapchat, because it doesn't stay up, and then you start getting into all of the pornographic pictures that kids are sharing, and screenshotting and all that stuff. And so watch the Upstanders. I'm serious.
I'll check
you
it out,
say you don't know, and I'll tell you, a person I highly respect, who always wants to be informed, was like, I almost deleted that email with the link to the movie, and I decided I'll play it in the background while I do some other stuff, just so I can say I supported you. Right. And then after sent me a message and said this should be a requirement for every middle school and high school kid. Drew her right in. So that's what's really great about these films that Indie Flicks does, is that they're super engaging. It's not like, we've all watched those videos about anxiety or cell phones.
Yeah, and then I'll come across an after-school special.
Yeah,
PSA
you're like,
type,
oh God, I don't want to
and
watch this. But these are actually really good. I mean, I've been going to trainings for over 20 years on anxiety, and I watched the Angst one, and I learned so much.
That reminds me of what we were talking about a half hour ago, which is, I wanted examples of things, but I learned recently that's a thing that some professionals get to do, is you get to go to a training on just an emotion.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. What's the best one you've been to?
Oh, the best training I've been to.
I heard somebody say...
Well, there's different... I would say there's the best training I've ever been to on an intervention is motivational interviewing. So do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
So motivational interviewing is based on stages of change. And it was originally developed related mainly to people with substance use disorders, and this theory that people who have substance use disorder are in one of 5 stages of change. or 4. This is where I'm like, I'm not a book smart
it's fine.
person, but I'll know, like, so there's like pre-contemplative where it's like, you don't want to change, like, it's not even on your radar that you need to change. Then contemplative, like, oh, this behavior is getting me into a little bit of trouble. And then there's action, and then performing or something. I don't know. Please don't hold me to this, guys. But anyways, and so you work with the person based on where they are in each stage of change. So if someone comes in to see you and you are like, oh, they got to like anger. And so now it's been, you know, you can use it with anything. Yeah. Like I used it with my mom actually when she was like at retirement age, but she didn't want to retire because she loved her job. And I did the training around this same time. And it's about asking open-ended questions, affirming what people say, helping them kind of come up with the answer that you want them to see. Like how I knew it would be really good for my mom to retire because she could, you know, travel, and her boyfriend lived in Canada, and she could do all these things that she liked, but she couldn't see past like, what would I do without a job, you know? And so I said one simple question. I said, well, I know you don't want to retire, but just curious, like if you did, what do you think you would do with your free time? And she started listing all of these things that she would do. And then she was like, why am I not retiring? And then she did. And so if you can kind of do that with someone who's struggling with a relationship, you know, well, what kinds of things would you do if you weren't in this relationship? Also, like, what's really great about this relationship? What would be good about not being in it? What would be bad about not being in it? And really getting other people to explore. So that was like really great training. I learned a lot. I apply it to everything in my life. And then I'd say, I mean, maybe not so much now because I know so much about it, but I think back when trauma was really starting to get recognized, and, you know, just to really get in deep about like how trauma works in your brain, you know, and how there's just something shifts in your brain when you experience a trauma that then has the trickle effect of later when you experience something else that brings up that same feeling, your brain says, meow, meow, meow. You know, I'm not safe. So like you think, oh my God, all I did was tell that person to calm down and they lost their mind, you know, but like, who knows, maybe when they were growing up, then they experienced some kind of physical abuse. One of the things that the parent said or whoever said was, if you don't calm down, I'm gonna whatever. I don't know. There's just so many things that can connect it all.
We bring up the calm down one in some of the police work classes. So when I teach de-escalation, we have a slide that's Hobbes, from Calvin and Hobbes. And it says, never in the history of calming down has someone calmed down by being told to calm down. Yeah. And it's absolutely the truth. One of our interns ran into it the other day. I don't think she said calm down exactly, but she said something along, maybe relax, or it might have been like an I understand kind of thing. Yeah. But the reason, or at least the reason that's been attributed from what I've looked at, is because it's an accusation. Yeah.
Calm
you're
down. Saying I'm not calm, or you're saying I'm doing something wrong.
And I don't have a reason to not be calm. I should be calm, right? Because it's almost devaluing
their experience. Yeah.
Like, I found that to be really, really true on the street. Calm down and relax are not good things to say.
Well, they're not good things to say probably in an argument with your significant other. Right. You know, I mean...
Well, that's actually what we say in the class. We put up the slide. This is how it goes every time. We put up the slide. And we go, if you don't believe that quote, I challenge you. Go home to your significant other, start picking until they get good and spun up, and then go, hey, just calm down. Calm down and see what happens.
Well, and there's this like theory or idea of thinking that we're all just like little kids in big people bodies, right? Like, so we're all working out our playground issues, but like as adults. So it's like, think about that. Like if you were on the playground and like somebody says something that like touches you, like causes you to have insecurity, you're going to like throw a ball at them or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so maybe now we don't throw balls or rock. Well, some people do, but like, you know, words. Instead we
throw words and sideways glances.
Yeah. Or shut down and leave and never want to revisit the conversation. And so I just
take your ball and go home.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know. It always, to me, makes me upset that we have these standards for young people to behave in these ways that like we as adults are still trying to navigate and figure out. But it just looks more sophisticated sometimes not, but you know.
Well, yeah. And I think I notice it a lot now that, like I said, my kids are 4 and 2. So they're starting to have their own autonomy and like experience real emotion and different social type things. And, you know, it's not just the protective world of mom and dad entirely anymore. And I watch the behaviors happen all the time. And then I'll come to work and I'll go to a disturbance or a call and I'm like, this is the exact same behavior.
Yeah.
This is the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you'll see it in yourself sometimes. Like when you encounter that negative emotion, it's like, you know, my son got really upset the other day because we left his blanket at my mom's house when I, you know, brought him home for the night. And it's like, cool. What if I left my phone at my mom's house?
Yeah.
And
exactly. You would drive back and get it.
Yeah. And we had a whole conversation about it because we do this thing before bed. Like we do our prayers and then we chat, prayers and chat every night. And it's my way of trying to like get good ideas into his head, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we talked about like, hey, why do you think you're upset that you don't have your blanket? And then we talked about like, well, it's a security blanket, right? So when you were littler, you had your stuffed rabbit, right? Now you have this blanket. And when you're older, if you look at other people around you, they have a phone. When they feel a negative emotion, what do? You pick up your blanket, right?
Yeah, you pick
that's
up your
okay.
phone. Yeah.
Sometimes you hug me. That's okay. What's not going to be okay, because that's the person that is picking up your phone.
Yeah. Well, in saying it in terms of, and I know this. What's your son's name?
I'm not gonna.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's totally okay.
But saying
security issues.
No, yeah, my bad. Saying like, and I know this because your dad does it too.
Right.
And so it's okay, like that you have this. And I don't want you to be as dependent on it as like I know I am. And so that's what like he probably can teach you. Like he taught you. And I had and this is why I say this, because I think a lot of times, and I might fall into this trap too, like I'm a new parent. It's always been real easy for me my whole career to like tell people how to parent, right? But of this like idea of like I can't show my kid when I'm upset. Like, or sad. And a specific example is I had a client who was older. She was like 21 when I was seeing her. But back when she was like 15 or something, her dad had cancer, had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And the whole time they were going through this journey with the sickness and everything, her parents never showed her their like raw emotion about it because they had to protect the kids, right?
Yeah.
And so when they were around her, they were positive and happy and didn't talk about the fear and the insecurity. So meanwhile, she's having all this fear about losing her dad and all this sadness about him having cancer. But to her, it's like, well, that's not okay that I'm feeling. They don't feel that way.
Right.
Like I'm something's wrong with me that I'm feeling that. But like, no, nothing was wrong with her, and nothing wrong with them for doing that. They had all the good intentions, but it's like sometimes so beneficial to allow your kids to see you struggle, because then they know, oh, it's normal to struggle. And then you show them how you manage the struggle, right? So she didn't get to see them behind closed doors crying or praying or reaching out for support to their friends. So she then had like this major anxiety disorder, was only friends with people online, and like, because, she didn't learn all that. And so that's one thing I always try to encourage parents, like when they're like, well, we're struggling and this and that, but I can't let them see it. I'm trying to protect them. And it's like, well, I totally get it.
Right.
And
don't
like,
wallop them with all the weight of the world that you're experiencing, but give them some kind of microcosm of that.
It's not their job to make you feel better, but it is your job to help them see that like humans have emotions and they struggle and they have hard times, and then this is how they get through it.
That brings me back to the healthy outlet thing from the beginning, I suppose. You had said like that we need an escape from that sort of thing, and there's good ones and there's bad ones. Is there an element of that like, to me, you say journaling, right? And to me, that sounds like you're not escaping, like you're working through.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what are good working through things and what are good escape things?
Yeah.
I guess is the question I'm asking. Because I think both are necessary. Like, I don't think you can always just work through, like, do some escapism. But
I think it's about, if you're going to do some healthy escaping, then you have to go back to the working through at some point when you're ready, right? Because sometimes it's too hard. So, you know, like, say when you're talking about your phone, like, that's a major escape. But some healthy ones, like, and everybody's different, right? So some people might go for a run or go for a hike and not think about that is a healthy escape, because they just go out and they pay attention to what's with them. Maybe they go with a friend that they don't talk about the situation at all. But then conversely, like, some people can go on a hike and they're processing the situation just like I would journaling, because some people process more like that, or they go with a friend that they can vent to. So I think any escape could go either way. You know, like, sometimes I might like journal and not talk about the, like, not write about the actual thing that's going on. Like, or I'm like complaining about something, which for me is also an escape, because I'm not looking at the solution. I'm just really like focused on the problem, which is me not addressing the uncomfortable in a way. It's like, it's easy to talk about the problem, right? You know, and some people, for meditation, it's like, you know, you can get everything out. You never get everything out of your mind with meditation. And I just like always tell people that, like, you don't meditate. Like, I don't know anyone who meditates and like literally thinks about nothing the whole time. The
Dalai Lama.
Maybe, but
Probably,
I don't know. I'm sure every once in a while he thinks of his grocery list or something. Like, but yeah, so, or that could be a time when people process stuff. So I think that for me, what I do in my work is like always to try to find for the individual, you know, like, because I can't say, oh, journaling's going to work for you. Some people, journaling might make it worse. For some people, listening to music isn't helpful. For some people, it is. Some, you know, everybody is so different. So you
just know if there were ones that you encountered along the way that you were, I don't know, that you were maybe surprised by. Like, I like to write too, but I don't really save any of it. Like, I can't sleep at night a lot of the time. So whatever my mind's about, I'll either grab a notebook, or if I'm laying in bed, I'll take out my phone and open up notes, and I will stream of consciousness, click it out, and then it's like,
yes. Yeah. You know? I do that like when I'm laying in bed thinking about work and like all the things I have to do for work, or like, oh, I just had a great idea about what to say like in this thing, and then I'll like write it on my phone and do something. But I think it surprises me and it surprises people how like different forms of activities can actually be therapeutic. You know, like even people like not knowing, like walking or running or knitting are all forms of meditation, you know, but people don't necessarily like know that until they delve into it. You know,
is there a psychological common thread between all of those?
Well,
because I always wonder if it's like a left brain, right brain, like if you can hit both sides of the brain, I wonder if that's what makes it a therapeutic thing.
Yeah,
or makes
I think
it
it's because it's something that has like a repetitive motion that you have to like focus on to accomplish, right? So you have to put one foot in front of the other. You have to, like when you're knitting, like there's a repetition to it. There's a movement and like a cognitive, like you have to tell yourself to move your feet even though you're doing it unconsciously. You're drawing, you have to like, you know, tell yourself where you want to go with it. So I think there is something between the, like for movement for people is a lot better than just sitting, you know, and that I think you're right, because it kind of ignites like a couple different things going on, and it releases like anything related to movement or activity is going to release
endorphins.
Endorphins, thank you. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm never smart about.
No, I think all that stuff's incredibly interesting.
It is. Yeah. The whole situation with what happens to the brain when you're experiencing trauma, and I never remember the parts of the brain exactly, but it's like it totally makes so much sense. And if you haven't like looked into it, do it. And then how EMDR, have you ever heard of that?
I do that.
Oh yeah. I did it too.
That was actually the first episode we did was with my therapist Tabitha.
Nice.
And Chris Knott, who has the same therapist, so we came on and we talked about mental health, trauma.
Oh, that's amazing.
EMDR. It is that amazing. It's that big of a difference.
Best thing I ever did. I mean, I went to therapy on and off from 16 I think my first EMDR session was maybe like in my 30s, and I'm in my 40s now.
Yeah.
And, so many therapy sessions, right? And then I did one EMDR, and I've done more than one since, but after the first one, I was like, oh, like, I love myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like that wasn't my fault or whatever, like the case may be. It's like a total game changer. And then there's this whole other kind of therapy called internal family systems. Have you heard of this?
No.
So it's not about your family, right? Like I automatically assumed that when I heard about it, but it's basically about how we all have these like parts inside of us, not to be confused with like multiple personality disorder, but like, that when we were kids, we had experiences, whether traumatic, like it doesn't even have to be anything like crazy. Like it could have been like you touched a hot stove and your parent yelled at you and you said, instead of saying, oh, I shouldn't touch that stove because it's hot, you said, oh my God, something's wrong with me because I got yelled at. And so you're then inside, you develop these protectors, which then teach you like to kind of develop this behavior that will protect you from experiencing that feeling again because it was uncomfortable. And sometimes they're
defense mechanisms.
Yeah, basically, but they like come back and become unhealthy, like right, and they cause like, I think you create these exiled parts of yourself that are really the ones that you need to be your full self. And so the whole idea of it is to kind of go internally and like find in your body, like maybe where something feels uncomfortable, and then to give it like a color and a shape, and then to kind of like talk to it in a way, like internally, and see like what's it scared of. And so you really have to be like very open-minded to
I imagine
like,
you have to be imaginative to do it, but the idea of intentionally focusing on an emotion and trying to concretize it, right? Trying to like concretize it and asking those questions out loud seems that checks out, right? That makes sense. I think we have to verbalize things. No, that's okay. I think we have to verbalize things to get them straight in our heads anyway, which is why I like this, right? You get to throw the idea out there, get it sent back, and it's like by saying it out loud, like it sounds perfect in your head before it comes out. Just by saying it, you'll like, adjust it yourself. You don't even need the other person
I
yet,
can't
right?
say how many ideas come out of my mouth and I'm like, well, that was a bad idea or whatever.
But it was a great idea while it was in your head, and if it stayed there, you'd continue to think that it's a great idea.
They say, my mind is a dangerous neighborhood, and I should never go there alone. That's like a saying. But then you take it the step further. Once you can kind of like connect with that part, is like you try to find out what part of you and what age are they trying to protect, so you can like go back to like kind of connect with that part and give that part an update, right? So you're basically saying like to your 6-year-old self who got yelled at on the soccer field, like, hey, since that happened, I like have done this and I have done that, and I am like now capable, like thank you for helping me all of these years, but now I'm capable, and like what would you rather be doing? Like that's as far as it goes. It's like you say to that part, like what would you rather be doing, because then you can make it healthier. It's so good. It like I said, years and years and years and years of talk therapy, 4 of those sessions.
Right. Crazy. I think there is something to that, and because it's also probably something you don't like about yourself, and explaining its existence rationally and why it is the way that it is makes you probably already okay with it. I think about that all the time in terms of same thing. I'm going to go back to that class just because I've been working on it so much lately. Like it's about policing the public. And it's kind of a guide to, hey, here's how you can handle difficult issues out in the public that you're going to be confronted with in terms of like hot button stuff that's going on and dealing with people you disagree with. It's like the only conclusion you are allowed to reach in your own head before you speak is, well, of course they feel that way. And then you need to build the argument up to support, of course they feel that way. It's the only thing you're allowed to reach. And by the time you do that in your own head, this person is understandable. You like them, you care about them, and you get how they got there.
Yeah.
Because you forced yourself to build that argument or build that understanding in your head. Like, and now you recognize them for their strengths. Yeah. That's the big part, right?
Well, and you can address why they're doing the thing that they did and not just like penalize the thing that they did, right? That's not going to, and that's what the whole juvenile review board is all about, right? Yeah. So these kids come to the juvenile review board because they got into a fight at school. Well, you know, why did you get into that fight at school? Well, maybe it's because of a conflict with this person. Sure. Well, why did it escalate to that? Oh, they don't have conflict resolution skills. Oh, and then you find out like, oh, their dad died when they were 6 and they've never like really process that. And so then they're into, you know, and you find out all of these things about like, how did they get where they get? And then we try to like address those things. Oh, this kid has way too much free time on his hands. He's 16. Let's get him into our youth employment program. Right. Get him a job. Oh, this kid doesn't have any decision-making skills. Oh, let's have him do the council, like our group. Or, oh, this kid needs some trauma work. Let's get them into therapy. And so then the whole idea is these things that are brewing underneath, who got him or her or they arrested
now
for.
You put it to work.
Yeah.
In
so
a positive
now
way. Yeah.
when they have a disagreement with somebody, they might use their conflict resolution skills and avoid a future arrest, you know? So it's like, you know, you see people who you're, you know, engaging with and having, you know, problems with over and over and over again. 1,000% those people are making choices based on an unresolved trauma.
Yeah, you know, I think very often.
How often, I mean, maybe it's not as often, but you see somebody like a gentleman that we hung out with on Saturday who years and years and years and years of being in trouble addressed the underlying issue and now is not having any trouble, is actually seeking further help because the underlying issue was addressed. But, you know, back, who knows how many times someone said, what's going on? You know, what caused you to do that? And that's what you're trying to teach now, which is amazing.
Yeah, well, it's some of that, and it's also like, if I could wave the magic wand for the world right now, it would instead of this like weird right-left dichotomy where we go, well, we're right and you're wrong. It's like, no. How about you go, thank God we have that other side because they're really good at this, and this. Yeah. Right? We're really good at these other 7 things, and like, let's play to each other's strengths here. So we talk about that, and we talk about like moral foundations theory. I don't know if you ever heard of that. I don't know if it's not really controversial. It's not like an accepted theory though, you know, but basically it outlines the different dimensions along which we make a moral decision, right? Like, you know, hey, does this pertain to care and harm? Does it pertain to liberty and oppression? Does this like chastity or purity versus degradation? Is it, you know, and there's roughly 6 of them, and they tend to skew, people weight them differently, and that tends to correlate to their political leaning. Right?
That makes
it's
sense.
like a high correlation between, like, you know, everybody has some version of those, but say like if you happen to be farther on the left, it might be like care harm is really high and really what's important to you, right? And maybe, and you know, that's important for everybody, but maybe on the right, like along with that, like you think purity versus, you know, degrading things are really important to you, or freedom, or whatever it is. And it's kind of, the idea is for people to recognize why the person that's not like you or values the other things is going to be better at a certain set of tasks than you. And how can you best complement each other? Like that'd be, I'd love to see, I don't care if it'd be nationally or locally, like, hey, can you kind of try to talk to each other or think of each other in that way for a little bit?
Yeah,
and go like, hey, we're having this problem. It seems like you'd be the set of people that might be best equipped to handle it instead of just, well, we're right. Of course we're right.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's right, actually.
Yeah.
Because I know there's some things, but like really we all come from our experiences that makes what we think the way that we think, not for right or wrong, but it just is. And so being curious about why, and like you said, playing to the strengths. And we, like any leadership class, right? You know right away oh, this person is going to take killer notes, right? Like they should be the secretary. This person should never be responsible for taking notes or reporting, but they are going to motivate this group. You know, and that's our leadership groups that we do with kids, is like trying to like teach kids about how to recognize those. And we always talk about like when you go to school or you go to work, like this is how you're going to navigate with your peers on who's best and who should do what. Like when I was in college, like I should never be in charge of the rereading, like, I mean, obviously I do some of the research, but give me the PowerPoint and that thing is going to be stellar, you know, because I'm a perfectionist and I'm like aesthetically appeasing and, you know, but send me the facts, because like I have some ADHD and tendencies. So I read like 3 paragraphs in an article and I'm like, okay, I got it. You know, and I move on. And so
my dream job would be to just wonder about things. Like, hey, just give me whatever the problem is and I will go explore everywhere. I'll synthesize 9 different things that have nothing to do with each other and we'll come up with a really great solution. Just don't make me like write about it, or like once I'm done with that, can you just give me another one and go implement that and come back with the next problem?
Person not to write about it, but to like mobilize people to live in it, like you live in the solution?
I don't know if that's really me. I mean, that's part of what I've been trying to do for the last year and a half. Like I feel like some of the solutions that we've come up with are good. I can't advertise it that way though, you know, like I'm not good at that. So that's why you've got people like Ryan to do the other end of it. Like, hey, can you make it so people hear about this idea we think is good? Like, and he's like, yeah, I'll do that part. And you know, if I can get somebody one-on-one, if I can speak to people face-to-face about things, I feel like I have a good shot of bringing them, motivating them, bringing them into the vision of whatever it is, but it's not.
Yeah, but you found like creative ways to do the thing that you think you're not good at, which is like something like this podcast and doing a one-to-one, because then it's like one-to-one we're talking, but then hopefully this is getting out.
Then people can listen to it, right?
And that's what it's about for everybody, right? Is like finding what they're good at and using that to get them where they want to be or get the goal accomplished. And
So I guess nobody's watching by now, which you're well aware of because you don't watch the end of the episodes. So you know that. Is there
That's because I watched the first 5 minutes and my ADHD kicks in and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I get it.
So is there anything you'd like to shout into the empty abyss of this podcast to the audience that isn't there any longer about like, really, it'd be nice to hear about YFS, what you guys have going on or how they could access that, because you do offer a ton and I feel like it's not always taken advantage of. Right.
No, I agree. So it's weird to kind of talk to nobody, but I guess I am talking to nobody since I think nobody watches, but I know you guys are watching. Norwich Youth and Family Services, I always say this: we're here to serve the youth and families of Norwich, and we will do anything that is needed. So, I mean, we offer free counseling. We do life skills, educational. Oh, sorry. Oh, God. Will we start? Should I start over and cut? Oh, no. Okay, start from the beginning? Okay. We got to give it 5 seconds.
Why do we have to cut? Whatever. Nobody's watching, remember?
Oh, man.
Just talking to that camera now.
So I'm clearly imperfect, and Jay likes to tell me what to do. So we will do anything. So we have free counseling. We are going to have more counselors soon with some of the ARPA money that came in. We're going to be starting some like substance use groups for youth and families. We co-facilitate the JRB with the police department. But we do any kind of learning skills, social, emotional group. So if you're struggling with anger management or any sort of mental health, or you want to learn leadership skills, we do those already. We do them in schools. We'll run them after school, parent education programs, having speakers come in to talk about topics, and we'll do them wherever you guys need them. We'll do them. And that's what we need to know, where people want to do them, what you want. But if you call me and you say, your schools will say, hey, do you have a group on personal relationships? Well, we might not have a specific group on that, but we can pull from different curriculums and we'll do it. You know, so that's kind of what I say. Like whatever people need, we're going to do it. So you just call 860-823-3782. Ask for me. Tell me what you need. I'll hook you up.
Awesome.
That's really, and just to give a quick example, like I had a mom call the other day, having trouble because her son's in kindergarten, having issues with behavior and, running around and doing things. And the school's like, trying to figure out how to manage this. She's overwhelmed with how to manage the school herself. So we don't do educational advocacy, but I have a connection at a program called Favor that does. So I connect the mom with that. So that's an example of like, we don't have the service to help you, but you call me, I'm going to hook you up with the service. So we also have a huge substance use prevention component. So hopefully doing a substance use prevention, it's kind of like DARE, but DARE isn't really a thing now. And it's like teaching the kids the skills that they need so that they don't use substances. So any programs like that. We also collaborate with Reliance Health on the Recovery Coach program. So, I mean, I could sit here all day and tell you everything that we do because we are kind of amazing and we're here for you.
And it would take all day.
It would.
But
sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, and we do this. Oh, and we I forgot about that. So
best option is, hey, if you've got something going on and you think hopefully like somebody might help you, just call you and be like, hey, this is what I've got going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I don't know if it counts as our quarterly session, but it's been delayed a number of times. And
yeah, I know. Thanks for being patient with me. Yeah. I'm thankful that things are in a place that I can come back to work.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. That's been Community Off the Cuff. The end.
All right, cool.